WFH with two guys. Now here's Benny and Dennis.
When it comes to really growing a company and being able to turn it into the dream that you might have had when you started the company, or you are, if you run a department, you might have a vision for where that particular section of your company or interest is gonna go. And without a doubt, we need to have a lot of infrastructure. We need to have a lot of tools. But the thing that we have as the biggest investment and the biggest part of our company are the employees. And getting the most out of the employees, Dennis, is really critical for us to be able to grow and take it to where we want to envision our company to be.
Yeah, because I see lots of companies are growing and they think by throwing more bodies at it, it actually doesn't work. The costs go up and they end up making less money. But it's like, how can I get my team to be more productive the way they are and get them more engaged and excited about what they do? Um, Many people think that it's throwing automation, which automation helps, but it's really around it's think about you as an employee yourself. It's feedback. You want to feel like you're part of a team. You want to have feedback. You want to know how you're doing. You want to know how you can grow in the organization and help the organization grow. And as managers, we all are not really good at it. Is unfortunately the challenge, and so that's why many companies struggle with productivity gains because the people quit, and every time someone quits you lose that efficiency, and you got to restart the engine again to kind of get going.
It's our responsibility as business owners to really initiate real, really positive and good feedback to help grow our employees. But as employees, if you're listening to this and you happen to be an employee, this is also an opportunity for you to be able to help your boss, your manager, the company grow. One thing I want you to listen to in this one, there is an acronym. There's a three-letter thing. I won't reveal it here in the intro. You got to listen to this one, but this one really hit home.
It
It
did.
was really,
It's really good. It's kind of near the middle of the
yeah.
conversation,
But
but it's so impactful, and this applies to conversations with employees, spouses, vendors,
mhm.
customers. I mean, it's like the light bulb went on for me. It's like, oh my God, why have I not used this same approach with all my conversations? So listen to that. Would love for feedback as well.
Nathan King with King Strategic Consulting is our guest today. We've had him on before. You're gonna love this conversation, so take a listen. One of the things, Dennis, that we think about when we're running our business is that we know what we want, where we want our company to go, where we should be taking it. And the ability to relay that to our employees, to be able to help them bring us along in the journey and be able to get this to our destination, it's really key. It's really important for us to be able to do that well. And I think that one of the best ways that we're able to do that is by providing constructive feedback to our employees and the people who are helping really shape and develop our company.
Yeah, and I mean, and I know when I was a manager, I mean, it's always a tough time because if you've got, let's say, 2 to 10 employees, your company always makes you do reviews at certain times of the year. It seems like, and it's always crunch time. And so you do stupid things. You just check and say, exceeds expectation, and don't give them much information, or tell them that, you're not meeting standards. And sometimes you'll give some bullet points, but not a lot. If I know, and I've been on the other end as an employee that I've received information. It's like, okay, there's a gap because what I think and what you think are two radically different things, and you didn't articulate it, and you didn't verbalize it, and you didn't write it. So it creates chaos and confusion, I think, for the employee, and then the manager is probably frustrated that they don't get the results that they want.
So to kind of sort this whole thing out, we brought in the expert. We wanted to bring somebody who really knows what they're talking about when it comes to this type of stuff. Nathan, thank you for coming back on this podcast today.
It's good to be with you guys again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, let's get into it. I mean, Dennis really hit it on the head when we talk about, if you're working in a company, there's a requirement as bosses, that I remember when I worked for a corporation, yeah, we had to do these quarterly reviews or annual reviews to employees. And a lot of times I think that, when I was an employee, it was really checking boxes. We were just kind of having to do these type of things. And this is really, that's really not how we should be approaching this. We should be looking at it a little bit more holistically, shouldn't we?
Right. And maybe the place to start thinking about it is in terms of productivity. And, when you think, if I were to say to you, how would you best improve productivity in your company? Where does your mind go? Like, what do you think of?
Unfortunately, automation, equipment,
Yeah.
all those types of things.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Me too. Historically, I think, okay, if I want to improve productivity, I need to move faster and I need to move more efficiently. But the reality is, if you look at productivity gains over the course of the last 50 years, like if you look at macroeconomic data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you see that there has been a slowdown in the rise of productivity in developed economies like the United States. We've picked all the low-hanging fruit that automation can get. So automation still delivers gains, but it's not significant. Now, in developing world economies like in Africa and Southeast Asia and parts of South America, you still see large gains in productivity because they're behind. And the reality is, if we really focus on automation, we'll get some improvement, but not a ton of improvement. And we have to look somewhere else. And the other place that we look is to our people and how we engage with them so that they can be more effective in their work. So this is the golden opportunity for productivity for our companies today, is to invest in getting our people to be more productive. And how do you do that? Well, you do that by having a very intentional way to give them feedback. And I like to call it growth feedback to distinguish it between what you were saying, Dennis, earlier
Right.
in a conversation where you're just going to get meets expectations or exceeds expectations, and that's it. And then you don't know what you can do to grow from there. So that's the opportunity.
So as start, let's do it from the manager's standpoint. So, what do they do? How do you switch from this, I'll call old school HR check the box to, I like, this growth oriented thinking, because every company wants to grow. If you're a company that doesn't want to grow, then you probably shouldn't exist. So, how do you do it?
Well, the odds are, if you're managing people, the odds are you're not doing it well, because a recent survey by McKinsey of employees that asked them, are you getting helpful feedback that enables you to grow from your manager? The percent of employees that said they were getting helpful feedback was 12%.
Wow.
Yeah. So
good thing is, as an employee, we're not alone. Then we know that we got a bunch of shitty managers out there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. You are definitely not alone. 9 of your 10 closest colleagues are also dissatisfied with what they're getting from their people. So if you're a manager, just acknowledge that what you're doing that has been accepted as conventional practice is probably not that useful, and there's a better way to do it. What I would suggest is that comes in two different ways. One is, what does the content of your conversation look like when you're giving feedback, and then what is the pattern or the cadence of feedback? We've all had it, like in our those of us who are over 40 have all had it beaten into our heads that you give feedback once a year during the annual review. That's tied to compensation, and I think for many managers, it becomes mostly about compensation and not so much about feedback. So people just end up not getting feedback really usefully at all. So there's those two pieces of it. On the first side of it, on the content of the conversation, the idea that we really need to lean into is, how do we be candid about the content that we give? And there's a great book called Radical Candor. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but it lays out a process of what it looks like to be really candid. And you can think of it like a 2x2 matrix. On the horizontal axis, you go from not direct to direct. And on the vertical axis, you go from not compassionate to compassionate. So to take the extreme to illustrate, if you're really direct and you have zero compassion, then you're just a jerk and nobody wants your feedback.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. That's a good one.
I think I've had a couple of those bosses.
We've all known that guy.
We've all known that boss. So.
Yeah.
And then on the other extreme, you get all compassion, but you get no directness. And that's sort of in that genre of you exceed expectations, just keep going. But the reality is we're often, if you're in that category, you might be nice to someone one day and then you fire them the next day because they're not performing and they have no idea why. So all compassion and no directness is useless, and all directness and no compassion just alienates people. Therefore it's also useless. So what you want to do is be able to bring compassion as well as directness together so that you can help enable them.
And Nathan, so I think that's part of the challenge too for managers. They're managing people, but they're also doing a lot of the work themselves.
Yeah.
And so then they get drawn into the task and not about managing people. How do you help managers overcome that? Because I think to a lot of them that's like, you hired me and the other 5 on the team. Let us do our damn job and get out of our way and then give us feedback, but don't be in the middle trying to fight the battle with us.
That's a great point, Dennis. And that's part of the case that I make to managers as to why they should give better feedback. Because if you peel that back a little bit, the reason that if I'm managing someone and I'm not giving them the task, I'm doing the task myself. Well, the likely scenario is I don't feel like I can control the outcome unless I do it myself.
Yeah.
And if I give you feedback about what you did well and what you didn't do well about this particular task, and we can set together some shared goals about how you're going to improve your ability to deliver the task, then I can grow in my confidence that you will be able to carry out the task yourself. And if that's the case, you're happier as an employee, you feel empowered. And I'm happier as a manager because I'm not burdened by having to do all the work myself as well as manage the people. So I think that's a really big opportunity, and it's a telltale sign of not giving effective feedback.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and it's a challenge because there's many managers that were really good at the tactical. I think especially in engineering, they're really good at doing the stuff. Well, then they get promoted to be a manager. They kind of have no compassion and they probably don't have good feedback. So they're kind of they're not even on the scale of your drawing because they don't do any of those things.
Yeah, they should just know how to do these things, right? I mean, I hear that a lot, especially in the technical environment, right?
Yeah. And I think historically that's been true, but we live in a very strange time where it's really hard to find talent. I think I've seen some data suggesting that, in the university environment, people come to university and they need remedial math, even at Harvard. Because they're not being equipped for college. And then universities are really focused on making sure everyone's having a fun, positive experience. And so, I mean, maybe there's a feedback opportunity for university professors who are giving everyone an A when they actually aren't gaining in competency. And then they go into the workforce. And this is happening across all professions. I've heard nurses talk about how new nurses take 3 times as long to orient as they used to take. I know as a manager in a business, having to teach people basic rudimentary skills about Microsoft Office that I used to not have to do. So it's across the board. And so, yes, in a perfect world, we would have better, more equipped individuals. But the reality is we have to take the people that we have and we have to meet them where they are as managers. We can't just do the work for them. And that's never going to end well. It's never going to end well.
It's funny. Maybe we've all had this boss, or in the consulting world, and we all do elements. You obviously are directly in consulting, but I know Dennis and I, we talk to some business owners, and they say, "Oh, yeah, my employees are just not very competent. They just know what they're doing." Well, I think the finger needs to be pointed at in the mirror, and this is a real indicator for a lot of people, is that it really starts with us.
Right. That's exactly right. And when you say it starts with us, I think that's a really good way to kind of talk about the process of what a conversation is actually going to look like with an employee. So if you're a manager, what you really want to do is, you have to have trust, and people will trust you if you are able to talk from a place of vulnerability. And so what I tell managers when they're giving feedback is that they should go first. They should essentially share their own challenges and ask for feedback. So I think a great way to start any feedback conversation is, what are some ways that I can grow based on what you've seen? What are some things that I'm doing as your manager that are getting in your way?
So this is the manager asking the employee.
That's right. That's the way to start. That's the way to start.
And that's radically different than what we've all been trained over the years. I mean, because usually it's the boss's boss gives him or her feedback, they give feedback, and it just kind of filters down. This actually creates a conversation, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. But what it says is that you're approachable and that your focus is growth. And you want to grow, you're not perfect, therefore that person can be expected to want to grow as well. And when you're in an environment where you're starting to share this, at the beginning, the employees are going to be like, you're great, nothing, you're good. That might be your first conversation. And a lot of times managers come away from that feeling like, well, that didn't work, and they never try it again. But they have to do it over and over again. And what I also counsel them is, if the employee is reluctant to give feedback, it could be that you're just a brilliant manager, but it's more likely it's more likely that it's not your brilliance, it's just they're not comfortable. And if that's the case, you should volunteer about where you actually didn't do something really well. So that could be like, you know what, last week I told the team that I was going to complete such and such a project, and I didn't. I was delayed, and I allowed myself to be distracted by something else. And that's, wow, my manager just told me they were distracted. Like, I thought managers were supposed to be perfect. So you start to hear that from your manager, and you start to think, okay, well, I can have a vulnerable conversation with him. So that's the first part.
And I'm assuming this is not where once a year you do this. This is, periodically. Yeah. It doesn't have to be weekly, but it's periodically. And as the manager, you're going to have to understand, some of them are going to be open and honest with you and tell you something you may not like. And you can't get mad at them. I mean, you've asked them for their feedback. They're giving it from their point of view. Doesn't mean their point of view is right, but it's how they're seeing it. I always tell people, if you look at a mountain, one person says it was an easy hike up. That's because they came up the slide that had an easy slope. The other one, it's a rocky, rigid, straight drop off. And they talked about how hard that climb was. Same mountain. It's just a different way and a different view perspective of how they climbed that mountain.
Yeah, that's right. And so if you were to get mad at someone who gave you feedback after you asked for it, you're being defensive, and that's sending a signal that you're not open. And so people will back down and they'll close up. But so if you asking for feedback is the first step, then giving feedback is the next thing. And I think this is really the issue, is we're not comfortable doing it. We think we're going to mess something up if we do it. But there's a really simple process that's really easy to remember that you can take into any conversation with someone where you want to give them feedback. And the model is the short form of it is SBI, which is situation, behavior, impact. And the point of this SBI model is that you're not making it personal when you're giving someone feedback. You're being very specific when you give them their feedback, so they can know where time and place and where it was. That's the situation. So an example of the SBI model.
So say SBI again stands for, because again, I'm
situation, behavior, impact.
Okay. So
here's an example. We're in a meeting together, Dennis, and we're with Benny. So it's the three of us in the meeting, and I say to you after the meeting, I give you feedback. I say, Dennis, when we were in the meeting with Benny today, so that's the situation, he had some ideas and you told him that those ideas were stupid and they were wasting his time. That's the behavior. Okay. So you basically, me giving you feedback, I've just quoted you. And that made me feel sad because Benny stopped talking, and I wanted to hear what he had to say. And that's it. So I'm not saying, Dennis, you're a control freak. You're
And I am. So.
I'm not saying that you don't pay attention. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm just saying, like, I wanted to hear from Benny, and you made it so that Benny wasn't comfortable talking.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And as the person on the other side, I'm not going to be as offended as if you just said, "Hey, I was a jerk and a control freak."
Yeah,
This way,
exactly.
hey, you stated, "Hey, here's the situation. Here's the behavior I witnessed, and here was the impact I saw." It's from your point of view. I may not agree with you at that point, but at least you've put it where I'm not going to be as defensive, and I'm not going to challenge you back. If I'm a good listener, I'm going to listen and say, "Yeah, you're right. In that situation, I did cut Benny off and tell him that his ideas were stupid, and that was probably not productive."
And the chances are, Dennis, I mean, it could be that you disagree, but the chances are, if you're not feeling defensive, you didn't really notice what you did.
Exactly.
That's the chance.
Yeah.
So then you become, oh, wow, well, I can be a more effective listener. I can be a more collaborative colleague. And then now you have an opportunity to grow in your next meeting when Benny throws out ideas that you may not care about.
Benny, I promise I'll listen to your ideas in the future.
Damn straight you will. Nathan, let's think about this from the perspective of companies that you have kind of coached along in this regard, where you've seen the results in terms of companies who took this advice to heart and really allowed for that, the ability for the employees to be able to have goals and understand certain ways of being able to do it and freeing up conversations like you had just kind of talked about. What have you seen, like, between the two different types of companies that implement this and ones that maybe don't or aren't as effective as doing that?
Yeah, well, the ones that implement it, they do see a productivity increase and they see increased engagement. So those two things go hand in hand. I mean, you all know the Gallup data that's been tracked for 30 plus years about engagement. And by the way, their last survey, I think in 2024, showed the lowest engagement that they've had ever recorded. People are increasingly more checked out at work. They're not bringing all of themselves. So that's part of it. When you bring your creativity and your intention to work, you're going to be more productive. Yeah. The second factor, and this is related to engagement, we know that when there's low engagement, there's high turnover. So when there's a very positive feedback environment, like people are giving and receiving feedback, there's less turnover because you're being developed and you want to stay. And if there's less turnover, then you have lower hiring costs. You're losing less institutional knowledge that you have to go train people on. You get a surge in productivity. And then the third impact is that I am able, let's just say I'm a manager in an environment like this, I am able to focus on bigger picture, higher level problems because I can trust my team. And like we talked about earlier in the conversation, I can delegate to my team. Yeah. So the key for the companies that are successful with this is that they make it a part of their process. So the managers are having one-on-one either every week or, depending on the context, sometimes every other week makes sense. But they're having those one-on-ones every week and they're giving feedback in those one-on-ones. And then in their team meetings, they're allowing for feedback types of conversations to happen as well. And these managers are also trying to think of it in terms of being continuous feedback, not just periodic, not only in a one-on-one, but that scenario, the SBI example that I gave earlier, if that happened today, I wouldn't wait for next week for the one-on-one. I might just say, hey, Dennis, get a chat with you for a second and then talk about it. That's what I'm seeing from companies that are effective at this, is that they make it a part of their daily operating system.
And I assume this applies, before COVID, we were all in the office. Now many of us are hybrid or remote. This applies to any environment. It doesn't have to be just in the office. Actually, I would think for the remote one, this is even more valuable because of the fact there's not a lot of touching happening anyhow. So that feedback and communication becomes even more powerful for those remote workers.
Absolutely. Isolation is the biggest cost of remote work, and you just feel disconnected. And so when you have someone who's kind of speaking into you and what you can become and things that you could have gotten better, and you're doing it in a constructive way, then you feel a much higher level of connection.
This is really powerful stuff. And I think, to me, a takeaway that I have from this whole thing, Nathan, is that, we invest a lot into our companies, whether it be the technology and the services and the tangible items that we have. A lot of times we don't really take a look at the fact that we're spending money on employees. And yeah, you know what? There's a little bit more maintenance, if you will, when it comes to making sure that this part of our operation, this part of our company is working smoothly. But at the end, I think that we are able to not only get the type of job satisfaction, the career satisfaction, and the ultimate goal for the company to be able to achieve, market penetration and being able to do well in their particular sector. These all come into play, and too many times, I think the expectation is that that part of our company really can take care of itself, or I just need to focus in on the other things.
Yeah, right. I'm just going to focus on the problems instead of the parts that I think are going well, is what you're saying, Benny?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reality is everything can grow, everything can improve. And the maintenance of giving attention to those parts of the company that are doing well is going to have a great payoff, just like focusing on areas that are underperforming.
This is powerful. I mean, I think back to my days as an employee and as a manager, a little communication and feedback, and I love the SBI approach, would have gone a long way to make me a better manager, a better employee. The people around me would have been much more productive. And so, I mean, great view.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. I've had the same experience early in my career of not receiving feedback and feeling kind of bewildered and disappointed and making job changes.
And then you make the job change, and because there's 88% of the other people are bad managers, you begin to think you're the problem, when in fact it's really there. You need to find those 12% that are really good and try to find that manager to work for.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
hopefully people will reach out to Nathan and figure out, so we can get from 12% to at least 50% are good managers out there, and we have a much better world.
Nathan, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a fantastic conversation. I took a lot of notes. This was really helpful. But I know there are going to be some people who have some questions that we couldn't get around to answering, or maybe something that's specific to their situation. What's the best way for someone listening to be able to get a hold of you?
Maybe the best place to start would be to go to growthfeedback.com. And you can see a little information about how I work with companies on that. And you can contact me through that as well. And that website mentions a small team workshop that I conduct for companies, which is a great way to get everyone working together and do a little team building and then learn something good as well. And of course, I'm also on LinkedIn. You can search for Nathan King there and connect with me.
Yeah, and for the listeners, if you're a manager, this is definitely for you. If you're an employee, this would be a good one then to share this podcast with your manager, to say, you got to listen to this one, because there's some really good things that they're sharing here in a nice little SBI way to kind of encourage your boss to maybe change their behavior.
That's right. And if you're an employee, maybe you can say, when we had our last performance review, I didn't really receive much information from you, and that made me disappointed, because I want to grow and be a better performing employee here at this organization. So you can use it to give your boss feedback.
Yeah, and I mean, and as a boss, if I heard that would be a positive one, saying, "Oh, you want to grow? I need to give you more feedback."
Yeah.
So I mean,
absolutely, it's kind of like iron sharpens iron in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Nathan King. King Strategic Consulting. Thank you so much for stopping by today. We really appreciate it. Yeah. This was really helpful.
This is a good one. Thanks a lot, Nathan.
Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Dennis. It was so good to see you guys again. I appreciate the chance to talk about feedback.
Thanks, Nathan.
We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Well, Dennis, that's another podcast in the can. I know that a lot of you all want to know how to get in touch with us. Dennis, what's the best way for folks to be able to get a hold of you?
Yeah, email's by far the best for me. It's Dennis J, so DENNISJ @worksolution.com, and that's WORX solution, no S at the end, so solution.com. Benny, how about you?
Yeah, same thing. Get a hold of me. My email address is benny@velocitytechnology.group. That's BENNY at velocitytechnology.group. Also, for me and Dennis, you can find us on LinkedIn. Look for us on LinkedIn. Work from Home with Two Guys is on LinkedIn. And we also have a website, wfh2guys.com. Look us up. You'll find all the past episodes and some little bits of information that maybe we don't get a chance to talk to on the podcast. We put it out there too as well.
And definitely share us with your friends and people in your network.
Absolutely. Let us know what we can do to make this podcast your podcast. Give us some ideas. And if you'd like to be a guest, let us know. We'll talk to you guys soon.
You've been listening to WFH with Two Guys. We'll see you next time.